Hey YouTube, it's been a while since I've published anything, but I've been busily at work on this house. Not busily, but somewhat. You'll have to excuse my appearance. I am sunburned all to hell in creation. I just got in from outside. I've been working for 2 days out here. I got some things I need to show y'all that's just gonna blow your mind. Some things we found out about, or I found out about this house. I'm actually surprised that my dad didn't see this or say anything. Man, I'm not even kidding, man. The sweat is like solidified around my eyes. If you've ever had sweat get down in your eyes, working in the heat, it burns. It's basically sweat is salt, and it burns your eyes. So anyway, that's beside the point. Just, y'all have to excuse my really crappy appearance. Got under the house, and I made an interesting discovery. We have a pier and beam structure on this house, and what pier and beam basically means is you've got blocks under your house, you've got 6x6 beams on top of that, and they support the weight of your house along the edges and down the center. Well, we had one beam, and I'll show it to you, one beam that's rotten, not all the way through. It's not as bad as I thought it was. It's still going to need reinforcement. How they got away with this, and I know they got away with it because of the building codes. It had to be because of the lack of building codes. Oh God, I got a salt deposit from that hat. Wow. Anyway, they basically just put the beams down. Now, in a normal pier and beam structure, when you do the house floor, you toenail your joist in an X fashion, you know, on this side and then on this side of the joist, so that it stays put. That's never meant to be permanent. That is just so you have it standing there, so you can get your so you got a joist, and then you got a piece of wood here, and then between the next one, and then between the next one, it's a type of box bracing. It keeps your joists from doing this when the weight's put on them. There are no box braces under this thing, and all of the joists have started ever so slightly just shifting just a little. I don't know how many years ago. The house has stood for 70+ years, around 70 years, so it obviously has settled to where it's at now. But one of the problems I see occurring now is, now that they've begun to move, they'll speed up with too much disturbance. We were going to jack the house up on that corner and take that old rotten beam out. It's not, of course, now that I see it, it's not as bad as I thought it was. But basically, instead of a 6x6, we've got the equivalent of a 4x6 under there now. Which, thankfully, because the guy cut so many corners on this house, I'm just going to put this on backwards because, man, I just look like shit right now. Cover that mess up. But because the guy did that, we can't. We had to reinforce. That's how I discovered this. I got under there last night and I started putting box braces in this thing. You could see clear through between the two joists. You can look down and see the beam on the other side of the house. It doesn't even look like the house has a center beam. So even if I don't reinforce these beams on the outside with the ones that I got, I am most likely going to have to use the beams I bought to put a beam on the center of the house. I don't think this house has a spine. I think it was just a big box that they blocked up around the edge, and they never built a center beam down the middle of it. And how this thing has stood for 70 years, or around 70 years, without collapsing, especially going through as many hurricanes as it's gone through, this just blows my mind. This just blows my fucking mind. Excuse my French. But it was that much of it. I got under there and I was expecting to find something. I find these joists that are 32 feet long from one end of the house to the other. There were six, well, they're not quite 32 feet. they had to have a little bit so they could take the two and put them together. You know, I wish I could take my other hand off this so I could show you. Basically, it's probably about 14 or 13 feet of span, and then the two come together and they overlap them vertically, one here and then one here, and they drove carriage bolts or nails through them to make one long span. And you can literally, I didn't know it was this bad, but I'm looking down the length of these with the light. It's the middle of the night, you can't see anything during the day. There's too much sun and your flashlight doesn't make enough fill light to really be able to tell. But at night, when there's no light and they're like, you know, all the weight of this house is being borne on these things. Thankfully, all of the weight of this house, most of it is sitting on the edges, all the way around the edges where it's blocked up. But the load-bearing walls, let's see if I can show you this. This wall, this is the hall, this is the end of the room, but it becomes the hallway as it goes down. That load-bearing wall has no spine under it. From the looks of it, I could be wrong, but it looks like there's no center beam. I may have been seeing the center beam rather than seeing the edge beam, but it didn't look like it to me. So what it has basically done, I'm going to have to dig myself a little opening down there because they piled dirt to the edge of the house. They raised the yard, but they didn't raise the dirt under the house. So the house, the yard, there's like maybe 3 of these iPods tall. There's an air gap from the ground, you know, from the ground to the bottom sill. And what I thought was termite damage may have been rain damage, now that I look at it, because termites would have eaten it all the way through. You would have seen it on the other side. But the damage on this thing is on the front bottom, and it's a 45 degree, the way it cuts in the wood. Here's your board. It's cut like this where it's been eroded. So I think what I've got is I've got splash damage. I've got rainwater hitting the ground, splashing up onto the board and slowly rotting the board, because like I said, everything that's away from the outside of the house is in excellent condition. Needless to say, I didn't waste a lot of money on those beams, because they're most likely, if I don't reinforce it from behind with it, I could actually put 4x6s if I could find them. I could double it up and I could make it strong again. Now that I know that the sill beam is not completely gone. But those 6x6s, if this house is lacking its center spine, I'm going to have to use them to shore up the middle of the house. But how people, this is supposedly a Jim Walter home, and I can tell you right now, you know, everybody's, oh, you got you a Jim Walter home, that's a great thing. Let me tell you, man, this is the most, it's fixable. It's fixable. But the corners that were cut on the construction of this house, I'm amazed it made it through as many years as it's made. There's no insulation in the walls. You just have 105 lap siding, an air gap, and sheetrock. Nothing. The sheetrock is your insulation. We're having to actually stuff it full of this stuff. This right now I got it blocking the windows, but you have to stuff it full of this stuff. And I've been filling the walls everywhere I've got sheetrock off of them with that double foiled styrofoam. Man, let me go show you this, man. This will blow your mind. This will blow your mind. I'll splice the two videos together. This is the trim job I did. I found some cedar planking. This is 1x6. The cut around the door was so big I could only trim it in 1x6. But it's now complete. At least this one is, other than some sanding and painting. And we'll go around here and I'll show you this. This is the bracing job I did. Last night I actually put these in, as you can see, well, or can't see. Well, if I can get the lens, there it is. But yeah, there was no X bracing. You can look, I don't know if this thing will show it because it's so bright out. We'll see if it will. You might be able to see it.
all the way to the other end of this, there is no box brace. These joists, and you can see it here, he toenailed in an X fashion to keep them upright, but nobody ever put the box bracing in. And you can see, let's see, here's one. They've started to shift. They're starting to twist, just ever so slightly. So, very, very, very simple construction. But this is what I have to fix before we can jack up this house. My neighbor has been more than helpful on a lot of this stuff, so I'm very happy to have their help. But it's pretty bad. Easy to fix, just going to take a while. It's extra lumber we hadn't accounted for, but we've got some, thankfully.